Hey there, and welcome back in. I am super excited to bring this particular episode to you. And if you're familiar with this channel, you know that I focus on the history of Reno and Nevada and the American West. But I think this is the first episode that we get to feature something prehistoric, prehistory, before the written record. And we're here at a rock formation about 20 miles north of Reno, Nevada. And this rock formation is about 2 miles in length and is approximately 3,000 years old. I'm bringing along an expert so we get a good qualified look at this structure. So let's get down to business and get busy taking a look at the Fort Sage drift fence here on the Reno You Know. Greetings from my newly improved tiki room. I've had the back wall done for quite some time, but recently I finished up installing the ceiling, which really completes the experience, and it's so much more tiki to look up and see that than a boring white ceiling. The structure that we're going to see today is really in the middle of nowhere. It's not close to anything. And it involves lots of dirt roads and no signage. So I've done my best to map it out, how to get there. And I'm hoping also that I can just follow along on my phone with the navigation system there and just see our, the little blue dot. Hopefully we can just see our location on the dirt roads without cell service. Maybe it'll talk to satellites. I don't know. We're going to find out. And as I was researching this subject, I kept running into a fella's name, and it looked like maybe he worked for the government, and he published a couple of papers on this subject, and I wondered if he was local. So I scrounged around and found his email, and I reached out to him, and yes, he's local, and yes, he would be agreeable to jump in the Jeep and drive all the way up there with me and show us around. Brian, welcome in.
Thank you.
Appreciate you coming along. Good to see you.
Thanks for having me today.
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited to see this. So,
yeah, I'm excited to go out myself.
Excellent. I did some research about this drift fence, and actually one of my viewers messaged me and suggested this topic, and I had never heard of a drift fence before. And it's something that people really don't talk about in general. Has that been your experience? That not many people know about them?
Yeah, that's very true. And I didn't have any experience with them until I started working for the Bureau of Land Management in Elko.
Okay.
In 1991, and so when I started working there as a field archaeologist, one of the other archaeologists who was already there, Tim Murphy, had been finding these kinds of large-scale traps, we call them, and out in Elko County. And one of the first things he said to me when I arrived was, well, if you're going to work here, you need to know what an antelope trap looks like.
Okay.
So there's different styles of styles or methods they used to take migrating artiodactyls, not just pronghorn, but deer or mountain sheep as well. And one other way, what we call drift fences, which could be either walls, which is what we're going to see today at the Fort Sage drift fence, or sometimes they would take like juniper poles, literally long poles, and anchor them at the base with rocks. And then they might string nets along them and have this long linear arrangement of poles and nets or a wall. And literally the animals would come, especially if you're going after pronghorn who don't normally like to jump. then they encounter like a wall like we're going to see today, and instead of jumping over it, they turn and then they just drift along the wall.
Hence the name drift fence.
Hence drift fence.
Okay.
And if you're an Aboriginal hunter, then just the very act of, animals moving through and stopping at this barrier and then turning and then walking, you've slowed them down, and then you can ambush them along the wall.
Smart.
Yeah.
Smart. Work smarter, not harder.
Exactly.
It worked even back then. So you're an archaeologist in background, yes?
Yes.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. I received, I got my doctorate degree in anthropology here at the University of Nevada, Reno in 1993. And my specialty is analyzing faunal remains or bones from archaeological sites.
And how many of these traps are there in Nevada or the Great Basin?
Well, we describe about 170 of them in the book.
Wow.
And so I tell people there are notations on 170 of these in the Great Basin, and I think that our book just scratches the surface of how many of them are out there.
My gosh. And I think people have probably seen these in their travels, but they don't really realize that they're ancient.
Right.
Right?
Right.
Oh, yeah, a farmer built a corral or something like that, but it's actually not the case. All right, we're starting to see the fence, that line on the hill on the upper left. Almost there. All right, we made it out here. It took us an hour and 50 minutes to get out here to the drift fence. So let's go closer look.
Yeah.
Here.
Yeah, the fence is in different sections, and this is the end of this particular section, so it doesn't continue to our right for a ways, but this is where it starts or ends depending on how you look at it. And this is pretty typical of about the height of a fence or a corral you'd build for pronghorn, since pronghorn don't like to jump very often.
Gotcha.
So the pronghorn that we've seen so far up here generally migrate from my left to the right, so they would come upon the wall, stop, turn, and then drift along the wall, and that's where they can be ambushed.
Interesting. And I'm seeing foxtails, and I'm going to feel them in my socks. I guarantee it.
Yeah. So we do have some breakdown of the wall over the years.
Yeah.
It does look like, based on the projectile point styles that were found along here, that the main period of use was probably before 1,500 years ago, between about 1,500 and 5,000 years ago.
My gosh.
Would be a good guess. So, Nevada is a very tectonic state, and so it's remarkable that it's lasted this long, literally several thousand years.
No doubt.
But with earthquakes, tectonics, some of these rocks are going to come tumbling down over time.
Oh, and this is one of the openings that you were talking about, Brian?
Yeah, so this is one of the enigmatic gaps that we'll see along this wall that we're really not sure of their function? Well, you know, we came up with a couple of different potential scenarios. One is that perhaps they built little side corrals here maybe, where the pronghorn might drift and then drift into some sort of corral feature that they could run up and close. Another is similar gaps are seen in walls up north in Canada that were built to drift caribou. And in some of those cases, some of the early explorers described these these wooden structures being built where they hung down snares.
Okay.
And then, so the caribou would drift along the wall, see an opening, and they would turn and get their antlers snared, and that would capture them. And that would be sort of a secondary way to capture the animals other than simply ambushing them as they're walking along the wall.
Right.
So for here, you know, who knows? A lot of speculation.
So ordinarily it was about 1 meter high. Do I understand that correctly?
Yeah. Because in these sections where we don't see a lot of collapse on either side, you know,
Yeah.
that's what we see in the meter, 3 to 4 foot range.
Cool. So we could pretty comfortably say this is, I know it's hard to date it exactly, but approximately 3,000 years old?
You know, right in the dead center of our estimation would be 3,000. Some of the projectile points that were recovered from here decades ago date back as early as 4,000 to 5,000.
Wow.
So it could date back that old.
Now who were these people?
We don't know for sure. We don't have good records on their ethnicity.
Okay.
You know, just like today, people move around a lot.
Right.
And they migrate in and out. And so we really don't know for sure
Possible.
who built this wall.
Yeah. Possible the ancestors of today's Paiutes, but we're not sure. Look at the scenery where they lived, Brian. And back then it was wetter and moister, as you described, so they'd have plenty of water and boy, all the space they could ever use.
And over on the far hill, you can already see the other very long extension of this drift fence from here.
Oh my gosh, look at that.
Goes all the way to the horizon, up on top of that hill and over.
Yeah, I just love the way they built this, how the wall just kind of snakes around in these, I guess you'd say, graceful curves. So Brian, if you were ever to encounter someone that sees this and says, oh, that's just a farmer's fence they built to keep the cattle in, what would you tell them?
Yeah, I've even had some archaeologists tell me that.
Really?
And I would tell them that there's not a single historic artifact that has ever been found along this wall.
Historical artifact meaning,
Meaning wire, nails, cut lumber, those sorts of things that would indicate that it was built during the historic period. And also, again, over the years, especially during the initial recordation and publication of this section of the wall, there were quite a few projectile points.
Right.
That were found directly associated, directly along the wall. You know, you can't ignore those kinds of associations.
Yes. Oh, you could see the fence way up, ascending the hill up there. On the left is that little portion that we passed earlier, but just to the upper right of that, there's even more. Oh my gosh.
Yes, and from the drainage where we parked and started, you can't see that section. And so that other section that we're seeing there in the distance was never recorded during the initial recordation and publication of the feature.
And that was in 1983, you said?
Something like that, yeah. It was in the early 80s. And
Wow,
so it was only later other archaeologists were snooping around out here and went up and over that hill and found that other section.
Oh my gosh. Gets deep right here.
It does.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, look at that.
Yeah,
Oh my gosh.
that's fantastic. Oh, and it's full of Mormon crickets.
Hello, crickets.
Gross.
Thank God they don't fly.
Yeah,
Look at this. Oh my gosh, Brian.
yeah. So,
Oh, that is so cool.
yeah, they built it on either side. And, you know, when we were here before, we were thinking when they first built this, maybe this creek was perennial.
Yeah.
And this was a creek that was running all year long. And that may be one reason why there's that gap right in the what's now an ephemeral drainage.
Yeah, so if that was a living creek way back then the animals would have followed the water and they would have met this fence, and that would probably have been a kill spot right there at that opening, I would assume.
I would too.
Yeah. Yeah, so we've hiked all the way up to that upper portion that was way up in the hills that we saw from way back there. The rock color's a tad different than those back there, isn't it? And the boulders look smaller.
Yeah, smaller boulders, more black basalt, just for the natural building material to build this wall. Whereas over there, those other walls were more of a reddish rhyolite,
Right?
all volcanic rock, but
Well, here's an interesting opening.
yep, another gap just like over there.
Huh. Brian, remind me next time, actual hiking boots. I've invested in some foxtails here. Never again. Good Lord, is this a bumpy road? What do you mean? Ah! Hey Brian, there's a piece of wall by the side of the road over here, and I don't think it's part of the drift fence. What the heck's going on over here?
Well, about 13 years ago, a dozen of us or so came out here and we wanted to essentially build a section of the Fort Sage drift fence
Okay.
and to see how long it would take us to build a section, you know, so long, time it, and then we multiplied the amount of time it took us to build this small section by the length of the entire Fort Sage drift fence
Oh my gosh.
to try to get some kind of ballpark figure of how long it might have taken to build
Right.
the Fort Sage drift fence and how many calories were probably expended doing it.
Exactly.
Yeah, and basically our basic conclusion was that the Fort Sage drift fence was probably not built in one outing,
One go, right?
one go.
Yeah.
That it was probably a cumulative wall built over some length of time.
Absolutely. Let's go.
Yeah.
Let's go check out your handiwork from.
Yeah.
How long ago? When did you guys do this?
Like 13 years ago.
13 years ago.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
And I haven't been out here since. So this is pretty exciting for me too.
Yeah. Let's see how well it's held up.
Yeah.
And so you guys just scavenged the rocks right just from out here, yeah?
Right. From right along each side. It has collapsed some.
Uh-huh.
You can see how flat it is on the top. And so it has collapsed some over the last 13 years.
Huh.
And a nice wood rat has built a home
Yeah, he has.
on top of our wall. You know, one of our other major conclusions was that indeed these kinds of large-scale traps were communal structures.
Sure.
They weren't built by a single individual or by a single family, but they were built by multiple families coming together to exploit, in this case, probably migrating pronghorn antelope, they were probably able to capture dozens of individuals potentially at the same time. And ethnographically, they described these kinds of communal captures as basically parties, if you will, or fandangos,
Sure.
where families would come together and play games, do matchmaking, exchange information, and that sort of thing. So this type of communal behavior and communal ceremonies were really important in the prehistoric past.
Yeah, I got you. I guess we're fortunate too that some rancher didn't come by and take down your wall, you know?
Yes, thank you. If you're watching, thank you very much. It's interesting to see how it's evolved over the last 13 years.
13 years, wow. Hey Brian, thanks so much for coming out here and all this way, almost 2 hours out of Reno to come look at something really cool. On behalf of my viewers, I think your expertise is really going to give people a good insight as to what these things really are. So,
thanks. I hope so. I had a great time. Thanks for inviting me, and thanks for watching out there. I had a great time today.
Excellent. All right. Till next time.
All right, thanks for hanging out with me on this episode. I really appreciate it, and this was really fun to do. We actually just got back from the desert, and I stopped here at the Reno Bar and Grill. This is a brand new establishment here on 4th Street. I guess it's in the brewery district. It might not be, but we can just say it is. The Reno Bar and Grill is opened up, gosh, it feels like a couple of weeks ago. This building used to be, I remember this used to be a thrift shop years ago. And then I think it was some kind of retail establishment, and then it was vacant for a while, but it's great to see a new vibrant business in here. And today I'm enjoying a Pigeon Head Red Rye Lager, and this beer is made just around the corner. Pigeon Head Brewing is about 1 or 2 blocks over, so they're promoting a local beer. That is all I have for you today. I sure hope you had fun today. Please like the video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Check out our Facebook page. And if you like the merch I'm wearing, it's all available at the link in the description of this video. So, as Harold S. Smith Sr. of Harold's Club always said, I'm with you. Cheers.